And we're rolling. Okay. Welcome to the very first episode of the AmandaFest podcast. If you are listening to this, that means that I did it. I have been talking about launching a podcast for probably the last year, and I have come up with every single excuse in the book as to why I wasn't ready to begin. And I finally reached a point where I recognized that I was never going to feel fully ready and that I had to start and just do it. And that's kind of the entire message of this podcast in general is I want to encourage listeners to take aligned action in their dreams. And fear is always going to be present. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned in the last few years is how to do things despite fear, because fear is never going to go away. So feeling the fear and doing it anyway. So that's me. That's where I'm at. And that's my intention for this podcast. I'm so excited. Before I introduce my first guest, I'd love to take this opportunity just to drop in for a second and get present. So whether you are listening to this on a walk, doing the dishes, driving to work, whatever you're doing, if it's safe to do so, I invite you to close your eyes. If not, whatever version of this feels good for you. I like to put one hand on my heart and one on my belly and just close my eyes and take a nice deep breath in and out. And maybe just shake away the day, get present, get in our bodies. I am so excited to be here and to introduce my very first guest. I was very intentional about the guests that I wanted to bring onto this podcast. I wanted to bring people forward that I walk away from being around feeling just lit up and excited and inspired to create and do things in my life. And Claressa is 100% one of these people. So my first guest is Claressa Jae. She is the owner of Love Led Wellness. She is a holistic practitioner and a magical medicine woman, and one of my favorite people on the planet. This woman is one of the kindest, has one of the biggest hearts of any human I've ever met in my life. And she has so much wisdom. Every single time she opens her mouth, you're just like, where did that come from? So it is my honor to introduce Claressa. And yeah, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, share a little bit about who you are, the type of work that you do. And then if you're open to it, I would love to dive into a conversation with you about fear and moving through fear and doing things anyway. It's one of our favorite conversations. So without further ado, Claressa Jae.
First off, thank you for such a beautiful introduction. And it's an honor to be your first guest. Yeah, this is just so beautiful to share this space with you. And I just want to congratulate you for stepping through your fear. So I'll share a little bit about myself. I'm a holistic practitioner and medicine woman. I walk the medicine spiritual path, which began in 2018 when I was leaving dead-end relationships and finding myself hitting rock bottom, and led me down to a path of self-development and healing through somatic practices. And that's through just diving deep into the fear of having fear and doing it anyways. And I was finding myself in rooms of people that I didn't know and beautiful things developed from those rooms that I pushed myself into, and being afraid to show up, not knowing a single person there, and found some beautiful relationships, this one that we've continued to pour into. But I am a self-development coach. I teach people about leading themselves with love. I believe that love is the key ingredient to a beautiful, peaceful life. And I believe that love is unconditional. So I lead with my heart. Everything I do is I have a fully open heart, unattached to any outcome, and just excited to show people the magic of when you really fully let down the walls of your heart and let people in, and you're able to explore the depths of life in this from a different perspective. And so I like to teach people that the wisdom is within themselves, and there's different, there you are the medicine. I don't have all of the answers, but I have ways to show you how to connect deeper with yourself and really find the juiciness of life, and yeah, find the things that light you up and really inspire you, so that you're not seeking things outside of yourself, but really trusting your own intuition and leading from yourself. So yeah, there's different ways to get there, and one is through plant medicine, and then another is through our breath. And so I dabble with few different modalities, and they're targeted to each individual depending on where they're at on their path. But some are as simple as a breathwork practice, and some are as deep as connecting with different plant medicines. So I go from one end to the other, just depending on where you're at spiritually along your journey.
Thank you so much. Wow, so much to unpack there. I, I think one of the first things, well, I definitely want to dive into conversations around plant medicine, because I do believe that there are a lot of listeners out there that have no idea what you're talking about. The only time, that you say a plant medicine, they think ayahuasca, and that's the only thing that exists. So I know that you are trained in a handful of really unique and special modalities. So I would love to dive a little deeper into those. But before we do that, one thing that really stuck out that I believe is a really big piece of manifestation and stepping through fear is this idea of non-attachment. And you mentioned that in your description of the way in which you guide others and yourself through having an open heart but being unattached. Can you elaborate a little bit more? Because I think that definitely ties into our theme here of how do you step through fear, if thinking about what you're afraid of and what the potential outcomes could be. What does it mean to be unattached, and what does that look like, and how can somebody step into that mindset?
Yeah. So it is a challenge for sure, and it is a practice. It's something, it's a muscle, right? It's something that we haven't tapped into. We Fear is something that is always going to be present. And we can take things from one end of the spectrum or the other. And fear isn't real. Fear is our perspective, and it is something that we have created in our mind, and it is not it can be one reality, but it is not the reality. So for me personally, when it comes to stepping through that fear, is that all of these ideas and perspectives are going to come up for me as soon as I decide to do something new or different, or take a new class. It's like everything's going to come up. What if these people judge me? What if I fall on my face and do something silly? What if, like, all the amazing things that you can spiral down? Or what if I do this and I have these amazing relationships come out of this experience? Or what if I do this and I see this different side of myself that I didn't allow myself to see before? And the only way that I can see it is if I actually get through to the other side. And so the unattachment comes from all of these perspectives could be a true reality, but my steps, the one step that I take is going to lead me to a reality that I can't even think of, that I couldn't even imagine. Even the ones that I've imagined, the reality that exists on the other side is all of those and so much more, like beyond that. And so it's like once I know that fear is present, and I allow it to be present for however long it needs to be, whether that's a day, a week, even sometimes a month. Once I start speaking about it in my friend groups and telling them, like, hey, this is what's present for me, this is what I'm moving through, letting that out vocally, it's like it no longer becomes a fear. And then that's the first step into taking the like aligned action of unattachment, of like, okay, this could be a reality, but I know that it's not, but I'm saying it, I'm speaking it out, and I'm moving through it. And then that allows me to now move on to a different reality. So yeah, so I try to remain as open as possible, and knowing that all of those realities could exist, and it's also okay if I do fall on my face. It's not the end of the world, even if that is, if I fail at something, it's okay, because there's a lesson within that reason of me falling on my face.
I love that. It's making me think. So we worked with the same mindset coach, actually. Shout out JJ. I worked with JJ at the beginning of 2023 when I was moving through a lot of fear. I quit my job and was packing up my apartment and doing all these really crazy, super scary things. And I was really frozen by fear because I was afraid, because I was so comfortable. And our bodies are made to fear the unknown. Just because it's unknown doesn't mean it's better, worse, good, bad, but our brains and our bodies are so interesting. And so I did an exercise with her where she invited me to lean into the fear. And so I think the fear at the moment was of whether or not I wanted to get rid of my apartment, if I wanted to like terminate my lease. And I was terrified. And she was like, okay, lean into that fear. Let's go down the rabbit hole of your brain of what you think is going to happen if you no longer have an apartment. And every time I played that out, and she invited me to play that out only because she was like, the worst case scenario that you're imagining in your head will most likely not happen. But even if you play that all the way out, worst case scenario isn't even that bad typically, right? Because our brains are wired to interpret fear of getting rid of your apartment or fear of change to the same level and degree as if a tiger is chasing you in the jungle. Like, it's so crazy when they do studies and brain scans of just our perception and the level of which people are perceiving, and it's real. The fear is so real. But if we can learn these practices and not only learn them, but like you said, it's a practice, right? So if we can practice some of these mindset shifts, we have the capacity and the ability to move past the thing that's holding us back, step into that unknown, and then create that new reality that otherwise would have been off. It wouldn't have been available had you not taken any type of action towards that next step. So I think that's pretty cool and awesome and crazy. And we've done so much work together, and like you said too, stepping into those rooms, that's how we met. Clarissa and I met at a personal development workshop, and she had driven down like 4 hours by herself, didn't know a single person, walked into a room of people that had established relationships. It was a really good friend of mine hosting the workshop. Most of us in the space knew each other. And then in comes this shy little girl who is totally lying, because my initial perception of Clarissa is so different than who I know her to be now. But if you hadn't taken that step and you hadn't walked into that room and you hadn't taken that leap, our friendship wouldn't have developed the way that it has. The journeys that we've been on, both emotionally and medicine journeys, all the things would have never happened. And it's just this ripple effect of taking that one aligned action and allowing that to forge that new reality.
Yeah, it's definitely like, and I think about it like, right, like fear, even though your perception of me from when you first met me, like I know that that's a piece and a part of me, right? Because it still exists. And that's also me moving through fear at the same time. So like I'm still in the present moment of fear, stepping into it and still sitting with fear while I'm doing something. But then like it's like, okay, I know that sometimes my mind can go on these spirals and take me down a reality that doesn't even exist. But like, it is like going to the gym, and I have to keep putting myself in these situations, knowing that they're hard, knowing that they make me feel uncomfortable, knowing that they're pushing me to the edge. But I have to keep doing it and showing up, because each time I keep showing up, that muscle just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And now I find myself in situations where I'm starting to lead my own workshops and lead my own things, right? Like, where in the beginning it was, I'm practicing stepping into fear and showing up to these workshops for other women, knowing that I have this wisdom and knowing that I have this medicine to share with others. But I'm too afraid right now. So I'm working on building my muscle and building my muscle through these experiences. And then now I've built that muscle so much to the experience where I trust myself enough to create the space of safety that was created for me. And that's all that I want, is just for it to continue that cycle of inviting other people into this space, and then finding that, like, that trust within themselves to lead themselves through the fear.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, that segues us really nicely into the conversations around plant medicine. You know, something that I've always, one of the biggest lessons I feel that I've gotten from my work with plant medicine is the idea of non-resistance. Is the only way that an experience is going to be negative, if you want to call it negative, is if there's resistance around whatever wants to come up. And I think that that's such a beautiful lesson in life, is that, you know, allowing what wants to happen to unfold and rolling with it and adapting and being open, versus trying to control a situation that you just can't, right? Life is going to unfold the way that it wants to unfold. And our experience of life is all about how we adapt and respond, not react, but respond to what's presented to us. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about your work with plant medicine, specifically as a facilitator. Yeah, I've gotten to witness you as a facilitator firsthand, and it's just been such an incredible, amazing experience, and just really special to see your friends step into their magic, right? Knowing what your friends are capable of, and then getting to experience from a client perspective of what working with someone like you is like. So yeah, if you want to share anything about your experience with plant medicine or stepping into becoming a facilitator and the fear that comes with that, curious to hear about that.
Yeah. So I'd say, yeah, 2018 started like my spiritual path, and I knew that I was interested in plant medicine, but I was only sitting with cannabis, Santa Maria, and I wasn't doing it intentionally, right? Like, because I didn't know about intention at that point. But I also knew that I was struggling with these things personally, finding myself in repeated patterns, finding things happening over and over again. And I was like, is my brain broken? Like, is something wrong with me? Like, why do I keep putting myself in these situations that I know are not healthy for me? Or I'm finding myself making mistakes. Like, I don't like to call them mistakes. They're just moments of life that we get to reflect on and like move through. But the easiest way to look at them is that they're a mistake. And I hurt people. I was hurting people in the process. I lost friendships. I was finding myself like feeling really lonely, and knowing that there was something bigger outside of myself, of like, why can't I tap in? I feel something there, but why do I feel so disconnected, right? I get it. Doing the work is a lot of work and it can be really scary. And it is, going back to the whole like analogy of it being the going to the gym. It is going to the gym. You have to keep showing up in these spaces. And so, taking it back to plant medicine, I knew that cannabis allowed me to connect with my body in a way that like I had never connected before. But then it became to a point where it was getting a little bit out of hand, right? Like I was constantly seeking to connect with cannabis and trying to find ways to connect to myself. So I knew that there was something there that I needed to reflect on and look at. And so once I stepped into the space with where I met everyone down in SoCal and went to that workshop, I learned about setting attention when it comes to being in the plant medicine space, right? Like this was my first time I actually saw like a ceremony. I saw it done sacredly, like, and I was like, wow, see, I knew there was something missing, but I didn't know that missing piece until I found myself in that situation. And then there was a calling that was inside of me that I was like, oh, I know that there's this deep rooted wisdom that wants to be birthed, wants to come out, but I have to move through understanding this medicine before I even try to teach someone else, guide someone else through the process. I have to go through the process. If I want to set the intention of paving the path and paving it with integrity and respect and love, I need to paint that. I need to take that path myself. And so I made a lot of mistakes. I found myself in situations that weren't of integrity, but it just fueled that passion inside of me to create spaces of safety and integrity when it came to sharing this sacred medicine. As I continued down the path and unfolded that medicine walk, because it is a walk and it's a journey, and I'm still I'm somewhere in the middle of that journey, and still learning and still expanding from so many amazing mentors, that I have found myself in such a beautiful, safe space now where I trust the people that I'm around and the way that they lead with intention and love. But yeah, like I said, I'm still in the middle of the process of unfolding that medicine journey, but I've gone to do some training to learn about the deeper medicine of combo. So I did my practice in Sacramento with Cosmo Visions, Renee and Shay. They're such amazing leaders and mentors, and they have just paved this beautiful path of respect. Respect to plants, respect to the earth, respect to everyone else around us. And that's something that I've learned in the path of plant medicine, is just having that respect for everything and everyone around me, right? So in the process of going to go do my training for combo, I actually found out that both of a great grandmother from one side of my family was a medicine woman, and then a great grandmother from another side of my family was a medicine woman. So having these pieces unfold in the process of that journey was like, wow, no, taking it all the way back to the beginning, I knew there was this seed that was planted from that beginning of I felt it deep inside of me that I needed to continue this path, no matter how scary and afraid of it I was. It's like, it's the biggest thing that I'm afraid of in life, is like this medicine path, because I don't ever want to guide someone without going through the process of myself and understanding the wisdom and the knowledge of it and sharing that wisdom and knowledge with someone else. So it definitely has been an unfolding of the process, but yeah, like I'm like I said, like I'm still like in the phases of integration. Integration is really, really important. I believe that it's not talked about enough in the medicine world. You're kind of just like, here, go on a journey and then be by yourself at the end. And you're kind of left with unpacking this suitcase of emotions and deep rooted trauma that like you didn't even know existed. And you find yourself in this space of like, what do I do with all of this now? Right. And having support along that path after sitting with medicine, because it is, you're opening up your subconscious, you're unloading your suitcase, this suitcase that you've stuffed and stuffed and stuffed with everything that has happened in your life, whether it be big or small. Your body remembers these things and holds on to it. And so when we sit with these plant medicines, it takes everything out from the bottom, and you have to sort through the things that you want to keep and the things that you want to let go of, or like learn how to integrate into your life in a different way. And combo actually was the first thing that allowed me to feel deeply inside my body and to sit with myself and be like, oh, even though I have all of these stuffed suitcases with so much trauma and whatever I've experienced in life, they are just pieces and parts of me that they don't make the entirety of me. And so how can I still love myself through all of these mistakes and moments that I've made? And combo allowed me to like clear all of that emotionally, mentally, physically, to be able to see myself for who I truly was instead of all these like mixed up fucking pieces in my suitcase.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. So many amazing, beautiful. You just the way you articulate all of that is so just beautiful and succinct and profound, and I feel like relatable. Two things that really came up for me in what you shared that I would love to touch on a little more is self-trust. I think that's a really big piece. Obviously integration, we talked about that, but self-trust I think is I'm thinking, so Clarissa and I sat, we now like co-facilitate ceremonies with each other because we've sat through so many ceremonies together that we learned how to hold space for ourselves and for each other. And I think learning how to hold space for yourself, period, with or without medicine, I think is just something that everybody should aspire to be able to do, because that is the way in which you build trust with yourself, is knowing that no matter what comes up, I know how to soothe myself. I know that I'm safe, and I know how to remind myself that I'm safe, and I know how to take care of myself. And that's something that I've learned through the medicine path. And I also do want to make a point too, and I would love for us to give a little bit of clarity. I think probably half of my audience is deep in the medicine path and knows everything we're talking about. And then the other half of my audience, our audience, is probably like, what the fuck are they talking about? What is
Mm-hmm.
medicine? I think that's something that I would be really interested in hearing your perspective on is, as somebody who used to work with cannabis, meaning that Clarissa used to like to smoke weed without any meaning, and then found what is the difference between, there are people that have gone to the woods and done mushrooms, and there are people, when I ask people if they've worked with medicines intentionally, responses I'll get is like, no, or they'll be like, yeah, I took mushrooms one time. What is the difference between, and there's lots of different types of medicine, right? We could dive into it probably at another time. There's combo, bufo, mushrooms, all of these different things. But what is the inherent difference between taking a drug and working with medicine? Because I think that
Yeah.
I would love to hear some clarity on that.
Yeah, well, the cannabis industry is so funny, but they have medicinal and recreational, right? You can do it for fun, and yeah, that's there. And that's like if I take it back to sharing with you like the thought of fear and taking it from one end to the spectrum to the other, right? None of it is bad or wrong because I don't like to put that shame, blame, or guilt on anything. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
moves through medicine in their own way. But from one end of the spectrum is just
Well,
not
well, now
knowing
we're
where,
well now we're talking about medicine as in a lesson,
yeah.
right? So medicine can be a lesson. Medicine can be like actual medicine, like a substance, but everything can be medicine as well. If you look at life as everything that happens is a lesson, we can also call that medicine. So I just wanted to make that quick
Yeah.
distinction in case we're getting lost there.
Absolutely.
Own language
um
here.
So, on one end of the spectrum, you can be using smoking weed every single day. You don't care. You don't know where it comes from. You could care less. You just want to go to the shop. You want to get your fix. You want to go home. You want to smoke. You want to disconnect. Great. Amazing. The other end of the spectrum is sitting with medicine as opposed to recreational, right? The other end is recreational, and the other end is actually sitting with integrity with the medicine of, okay, I know where this comes from. I know who created it. I know energetically that this plant was taken care of. This plant was nurtured. This plant was like loved all the way through, right? And now I'm going to give thanks and gratitude for sitting with this plant and this even being accessible to me. The fact that I have access to this now and it's legal and I can connect with it and find ways to deepen my relationship with myself and with others, like, okay, now I'm sitting with intention. Now I have a connection to the plant. Now I understand the plant from the root all the way to it being rooted into me. So I see it from the root of where it actually came from, and now it's rooted into me where I can lead with a different direction, as opposed to I'm just trying to disconnect and I'm trying not to feel anything because life is overwhelming. Life has so many moments that can make us have all these different emotions. But now I understand my emotions. Now I can connect with this so that I can create deeper connections with those around me too. Because sometimes I like to quiet my brain because I am human and my head has so many different thoughts and so many different things that are happening and so many ideas and dreams that I want to accomplish, and that can get very loud too. And so now it's like, okay, I just want to be present in this moment, and so this is the intention that I'm setting when I'm connecting with cannabis. So, and yeah, same goes with any sacred plant.
Yeah, and I will say too, I'm a part of this social network No Fun, KNOW, which if you follow me, I post a lot about. But we talk about this a lot in these spaces, right? Where it's not a sober only space, but we're talking about consumption with intentionality and what does that look like? And if you want to take some mushrooms and go to a party, like again, nothing's good, bad, right, wrong. We're not saying you can never smoke weed again. Also, we're not saying you need to sit with plant medicine. Plant medicine is a path that you in your bones are called towards. And if you don't have that calling, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But I believe that all of these lessons can be transferable when we're looking at medicine in terms of lessons, right? How can every moment be medicine? How can I bring intentionality into my daily life? How can I go to a party or an event and instead of just saying, oh, I had a horrible day, I want to get fucked up and make out with a bunch of people. Maybe that's what you want to do. Great, cool. But is it really what you want to do? Because the next day, are you feeling good about yourself? Maybe you are. Awesome. Then keep doing that. But if you're not being intentional with your actions, you're going to feel this inherent, if you're tuning into your body, right? This is the path that happened for me. And I guess I'll reframe the words, not you, me. This is what happened for me, is that I was not living in intentionality for a really long time, and my actions were reflecting that. And then before I knew it, it's this ripple effect of my entire life was out of alignment because I was taking one misaligned action after the other. And when I looked at what I was doing with my time and who I was spending time with and what activities I was participating in, nothing felt like me, nothing felt good, nothing felt nourishing. And so just taking that step back and just bringing intentionality into the day to day and treating every moment like medicine, I feel like is the most beautiful lesson. And when hard things happen, it doesn't mean that they're bad. It's trying to find, okay, what is the lesson in this for me? And where can I learn and where can I grow? And looping that all the way back to fear, right? We as human beings love to be comfortable and we love the known. And sometimes our known circumstance is super shitty. And yet we choose that shitty known circumstance over this possibly great unknown because of fear. And so whether you're working with plant medicine, you're just trying to bring more intentionality into your life, whatever it is that you're doing, I think, Claressa, you hit the nail on the head earlier where you were like, the first step in moving through the fear is just acknowledging the fear, is just giving that fear space to breathe, is saying to yourself, hey, I'm really scared of this, is finding friends that can hold space for you, that are safe, that will love you without judgment, and to be able to share with them, hey, I'm really afraid of this potential thing that my brain is spinning out about. And you'll soon realize that the moment you give that fear space, the moment you get to speak to that fear, all of a sudden it just starts to dissipate.
Yeah, like my whole thing that like I love to do is I love to create a space of non-judgment. Like, look, you say whatever the hell is going on in your brain. I don't care. Like, I've heard it all. Like, I've heard everything, okay? There's no judgment on it. And that's once we start judging that fear is when it has the power to take over us, right? But it's like if you just look at it and like, look, it's just a thought. It's just a thought. And I'm just going to share it. There's no truth to it. It's not what I believe, but let me just share this fear of what's present. And then you actually speak it and you're like, that sounds so wild. Like, what? But if you let it ruminate in your brain for so long, you're not giving it the space to actually breathe. Like you're letting it like consume you and like you're allowing it to become like suffocating almost. And so it's like, I love to teach people breath work because breath work allows you to like let go of that suffocation and like let it actually out and let the words flow through. And like just because you're speaking it doesn't mean that it's true. It's just giving it the space that it needs to be released so that you can continue to take those steps forward.
I love that. I love that. Do you have anything else that is on your heart that you feel called to share as we near the wrapping point?
No, I feel very clear and content and complete.
Beautiful. Well, I guess before we close, I would love to ask you if you could go back to any younger version of yourself and impart some piece of wisdom that you know now that you wish you knew sooner, what would that piece of wisdom be?
Could probably go back to my 20-year-old self of like trying to figure out life and being so afraid like of not knowing like what was going to come next and just like telling myself to just live life and just don't worry about of the like small steps or like don't over consume yourself with like am I going to be perfect in any way, and it's like just do the things, do the hard things, do the things that you're afraid of, do the things that make you uncomfortable, and just see what happens, see what unfolds. Because like I held myself back from experiencing so much in life because I was too afraid to even like take the steps. Like I didn't start taking the steps until my 30s. So yeah.
Yay. Well, thank you so much, Clarissa, for being my first guest. And I'm sure I'll have you back on again and again and again because I feel like we really only scratched the surface. Would you be able to share? I'm going to put your bio I'll put your bio in our bio so people can read a little bit about you. But can you tell us if you have anything coming up? Where's the best place to find you? Yeah, would love that.
Yeah, the best place to find me and connect with me is always on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Claressa Jae for my personal, and then business is Leading with Love Wellness. And then the event that I have coming up is actually here in Miami Beach, and I'm hosting a free women's circle on June 12th at 6:30, and it's a sacred sunset circle, and it's just for a place to gather women to share their stories, create a safe space and container for anyone, whatever you're going through. You want to make deeper connections, you want to find other women who are on the path and you want to learn more about the path. Whatever it is, that's what that space is available for. And I do have some retreats coming up, but they won't be till the end of the year. So yeah.
So if we follow you on Instagram, we'll be able to find them.
You will be connected. Yes.
Yay, beautiful. Thank you so much, Clarissa. I'm so grateful to have had you here and to have you in my life. And I love you. I love you. And yeah, stay tuned for more episodes if you're not already following. at AmandaFest Podcast, my personal at Amanda Lorena, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye.
Bye.